We talk about fear and anxiety, and we talk about how you can live a whole year without it. And for that, we want to address fear and anxiety in a way that we are taking responsibility for our emotions and don't feel like our emotions take us for a ride. So I just talked about that there are two reasons that fear and anxiety are there. Two messages in some ways that you could say fear and anxiety give you, just like the pain in the knee. The one is what happened in the past, that there are still some things that fester inside of you that make you look through the eyes, maybe even of a child, at life, at yourself, and not through the eyes of a competent adult. And the other one is that you do have patterns and tendencies that make you scared, that make you freak yourself out. Now, back to this knee pain for a moment. So the doctor tells you to lose some weight. That would be really, really important. Now, how do you lose weight? Well, it's a mixture of working out and making some dietary changes. Now, living without fear could be very similar in regards to making some changes on what you feed your mind and at the same time also working out your mind. So let's look at the junk food that we are feeding ourselves with that potentially causes this emotional pain of fear and anxiety, that causes us to be in that state of stress, concern, and worry. And here are a few examples of our maybe mental diet that needs to change. Well, the first one is, of course, negative self talk. And negative self talk is a wide field, and there is a whole 1, 2, 3 show topic there when it comes to negative self talk, what it does to you, and how you ideally want to change it. But negative self talk is any thoughts that are judgmental and critical towards yourself and others, thoughts that make you feel anxious, angry, powerless, insecure. Negative self talks are those what if scenarios. What if there is war with North Korea? What if there is some horrible global, whatever, warming problem occurring in our country? What if the stock market crashes? What if, what if, what if? All of those things that we do get at some point popping into our mind. If we are entertained them, if we are going with it, it's like a slippery slope that makes us to go from one thought to the next bigger one, to the next more catastrophizing one, until we are sitting there in that freeze state with a cold sweat. All our hairs are standing up, and we are living already through a trauma that hasn't really happened. And then there is also the negative self talk, which is about thinking what other people must be thinking about us. You know, where we put ourselves into their minds, where we are interpreting someone raising an eyebrow, and we are, of course, thinking, oh, this is a reflection on us. That must mean that, dot, dot, dot. So, negative self talk is a very unhealthy diet that unfortunately is not just about saying, well, I'm going to stop it, which is a very important and powerful starting point. But ideally, you want to also re-guide your mind towards positive thinking, towards thoughts that are more empowering, uplifting. And this is something we will talk more about during the video webinar on Saturday. Again, this Saturday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. And if you are interested, you just send an email at info@thefearandanxietysolution.com. Now, the second bad habit, the second mental diet that you want to change in order to have a year without fear is that junk food that comes from the outside. And that junk food is not only the news that you may be binging on or the scary TV shows that depict zombies and whatever that just make you at night have nightmares. It's also social media, because social media is not a feel-good media. As much as it's about connection, many people feel that it causes them to feel worse about themselves. That fear of missing out is mainly a response to looking at what other people are doing on Facebook, Instagram, and so on, and feeling like, well, I'm not as cool, I'm not as in, I'm not included. And that is where a lot of the fear also comes from. So just having a little diet in that regard, just doing a little less of feeding yourself with things that don't make you feel good, which also includes those friends that are always talking about subjects that make you ultimately feel bad and negative, even if you agree. I mean, a lot of families and friends are discussing right now politics and the government and so on. And even if in the moment you feel like, yeah, we are all on the same side, but there's still a certain kind of negativity. It's like eating a Big Mac or a double Whopper or whatever, and afterwards feeling like, I cannot really digest it very well. So just allowing yourself also to notice when your emotions tell you that doesn't feel good anymore. That makes me feel a little anxious. That makes me feel a little nervous. And then stopping yourself, turning the TV off, turning the computer off, changing the topics with your friend, or excusing yourself. Those are all very empowering behaviors that help you to not go into that spiral of fear and anxiety. Another dietary change that you may want to do is that you behave as if you don't matter. Have you ever noticed that you actually hold yourself back? I talked before about this not speaking up, not standing up for yourself, maybe not really wearing the clothes that you want to wear, maybe not daring to go outside of the house on a Saturday morning to get the newspaper in your bathrobe because you don't want to be seen by the neighbors. There may be so many examples where you are playing it safe by playing it small, that ultimately you are giving your mind the message, I really am not safe being myself. I need to be unnoticed in order to survive. And if you are allowing yourself just to expand a little bit, if you're allowing yourself to just take a little tiny step forward and show yourself that red socks are safe, that having maybe a 3-day shadow on a Sunday morning is okay in the face of your parents, just allowing yourself to be a little bit more true to yourself and doing things that are feeling right to you, but you have denied yourself because they felt like it's not acceptable to others. Now, similar to that is if you base your self-worth on having to get approval from others, being liked, pleasing others, or reaching some external goals, which was one of my favorite anxiety patterns. And that's another thing where you create fear and anxiety, even if you think like, oh yeah, fear and anxiety, that drives me, that makes me definitely a more productive member of society. And it makes you a more miserable one too, because you're not really doing it from joy and purpose, whatever you are pursuing, but you're coming more from that need to have to prove yourself, to get certain kind of positive feedback, to feel better about yourself. So that's another pattern that you may have to just tone down and notice, well, I want to shift this year, especially at the beginning of the year, my focus from just having to prove and achieve to feeling more at peace, to, and that's another topic, taking care more about my physical needs. Because that is certainly something the mind reacts very sensitive towards. If we don't feed ourselves well, if we don't sleep enough, if we are living on Twinkies and Red Bull, our mind says, whoa, this is not right, this is not good. And then again, similar to the pain in the knee, your fear and anxiety becomes the pain in your mind, and it says, stop it. You are hurting yourself. You are not taking care of yourself. And that is where the responsibility piece comes in. Now, we're going to skip the break, Justin. So, one thing that this will do for you is if you change these patterns, and you don't have to change them all. Don't make yourself, completely a different person radically, because usually when we try to change too many things at the same time, we cannot really sustain them. And then after 6 weeks, you just go back to where you started because it just feels more comfortable and more easy. So pick one. Choose your negative self-talk. Choose maybe just being a little bit better with how you take care of yourself physically. Choose that in the evening, 30 minutes before you go to bed, TV, laptop, tablet, turn off. Maybe you just hear nice music or pet your cat or your dog. Whatever it is, one of those things already will make you feel more at ease because you treat yourself with greater respect. You treat yourself with greater care. And your mind will no longer get triggered into the survival mode or into the self-protection mode, because your mind will feel like, oh, wow, we are actually more balanced. There is someone, meaning you, the conscious self, who does seem to know that there are certain priorities that are important to you, that there are certain things that your mind needs in order to feel well, and you are actually taking care of them. So it is quite magical, to be honest, how fast such a dietary change, a mental dietary change, can work. Now, then the other part that we talked about when it comes to losing weight, losing fear and anxiety, is to build strength, and ultimately have a workout. And for that, it's good to have a little routine. Now, the opposite of fear and anxiety is not fear and anxiety. And it's also not necessarily, crickets in your mind, peace, calmness. The opposite of fear and anxiety, I believe, is trust. And trust is like a muscle. It needs to be built. It needs to be strengthened. And how do you build your trust muscle? Well, one of those things is, of course, that you treat yourself in a trustworthy way. And this is what we just talked about in regards to how you approach life. Now, another one is that you have a healthy, happy, empowering routine. And that can start with simply centering yourself. Now, when you watch yourself, you may notice that you just barely make it out of bed, grab a cup of coffee, somehow sit in the commuter train or get into your car and make it to work, and you haven't really woken up yet. You just feel still like those zombies that you watch on TV. Now, that's not necessarily the most empowering and the most centered way of approaching life. Because when you are in that state where the moment you wake up, you may think about work or other people, you already are somehow pulling your mind out of yourself and into something that's not even there yet right now. Centering, whether it's simple breathing meditation, whether it's listening to a guided meditation, there are many of them on the Fear and Anxiety Solution website or also on the YouTube channel that I have, whether it's writing these morning pages, whether it's just going for a little walk. Nothing takes more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes in the morning, and it's certainly changing everything about your day. It's something that you will notice when you start your day in that conscious centered way, that you own your experience much more of the day and that you're not feeling so tossed around like a leaf in the wind by whatever unforeseeable circumstances and whatever people around you are doing or feeling. So having that centering as a starting point, finding your inner foundation, your inner center, your center of gravity, that would be the first step of this trust muscle building approach, then during the day, noticing where your mind goes. And again, does it go too much outside of you? Get distracted, get affected. You pick up other people's emotions. You are feeling like, oh, I need to think like they're thinking, or they are judging me. So now that makes me feel bad. Or if you can stay centered and grounded inside of yourself, because this is the dietary part again, where you're simply not allowing yourself to go there. And then in the evening, sitting down and reflecting back on yourself and what you appreciate about yourself. That is an incredible, simple, but powerful way to build this trust muscle. When I ask people to do that, pretty much they stare at me blank. They don't really know what that means at the beginning, because most of us don't think about self-appreciation as something worthwhile doing for whatever reason. Thinking about how during the day you made a contribution. And it doesn't have to be finding the cure of cancer. It can be a contribution to yourself, because you chose to not have a fast lunch in front of the computer, but actually sit on a bench in the park and enjoy just that 30 minutes break and feed yourself in a healthy way, also mentally and emotionally. That self-appreciation can be that rather than feeling like you have to answer that email, you sat down with your 5-year-old and you were playing a little Barbie or doing a little toy truck, because that was more important than pleasing someone at work. It can also be that you feel really miserable, your nose is running, your ears are hurting, and you still empty the dishwasher. Whatever those things are, look at yourself and look for ways that you learn more about the things that make you a trustworthy human being, where you know, I can trust myself, I'm good, I'm making a difference in my life and also other people's lives. So self-appreciation every day, find at least 3 things. And then having also more trust in life. So you can write down things that you're grateful for. Maybe there are little coincidences that happen during the day. Maybe there was just one person in the line at the grocery store that had the cart completely filled and you only had your sandwich. And that person said, hey, do you want to go in front of me? And in that moment, you felt like, wow, my lunch just was 10 minutes longer because I didn't have to wait behind this person. Things like that. You could call it life is good. Universe is showing up for you. Good things are happening to me. That also builds in general a greater feeling of trust in that life that you have. And it doesn't make you feel so alone. It doesn't make you feel it's all up to you. It doesn't make you feel that ultimately you need to be in control. Otherwise, just everything falls apart. It gives you more a sense of connectedness. So these are very simple but empowering steps you can take to build that trust muscle. Now, when you do this, when you work on yourself, when you choose this 3rd of January to really make a difference, and if you listen to this again at the 7th of August, you can start right there. Never too late. When you choose that, you may want to also do this not from a place of I have to, or I need to, or I better, but you do it because you have a goal in mind. And that goal in mind is not to just overcome fear and anxiety, not to fight your emotions, but this goal in mind is to gain a greater sense of wholeness. That goal in mind is for you to discover more about yourself. And you do discover more about yourself when you are passionate about that, when you feel there is a reason for this self-discovery, because not only you feel better, but those whose life you touch, whose life you are involved with, are benefiting from you being in that more whole and empowered and confident place. You can make a greater contribution when you are just committing to that consistent step of taking care of your mind, just like you would take care of a beloved person, a beloved animal, or maybe even your body. Just allow yourself to take steps to make your mind this year a priority. Not using your mind like a computer that you feel you can turn on and off and overload with whatever you want and run whatever movies and games you want to play with. Seeing your mind more a part, an extension of yourself, a living and breathing entity, if you may, but something that needs tender, loving care and guidance, commitment, consistency, and compassion. And if you do that, you will realize that for some reason your mind responds with just feeling greater ease and peace, much less anxiety, much less worry, much less stress, because you have been building a relationship with your mind that is a relationship based on trust, a relationship based on self-care, and ultimately a relationship based on self-love. So those steps will help you to make fear and anxiety something that you will gently and gradually not only outgrow, but you will see fear and anxiety as that what helped you to grow more into the better version of yourself. Because whatever causes your fear and anxiety right now basically tells you that somehow you're still operating on the beliefs that you're not good enough, that you're not safe, or that you're somehow powerless and don't matter. Whatever the fear and anxiety right now is about, ultimately makes you treat yourself like a stranger or an enemy that can't be trusted. So if you are committing to what we just talked about, you will be able to turn this around and you will be able to gain also a much more self-appreciative, self-trusting, self-reliant, and self-loving relationship with yourself. And that would be a worthy goal to focus on for this year. Now, if you want more information about what to do with fear and anxiety and understand more also the subconscious aspects and especially how to work with your subconscious, how to communicate with your subconscious, since that plays such a big role in fear and anxiety and also in healing fear and anxiety, then just tune into this video webinar on Saturday, this Saturday, January 6th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, noon East Coast time. You get access by simply emailing at info@thefearandanxietysolution.com, and you can then simply tune in and learn more about it. Well, an hour already went by very quickly as usually, and I hope these tools, these steps will give you just like a railing to hold on to. It will give you a pathway to continue to walk on. It will give you also the hope and the comfort that you are not trapped in your emotions. Your emotions have a reason to be here, and your emotions have an important message to share with you. All it takes is just to take some time, turn the awareness inwards, go a little bit into a place of stillness, and listen, and then respond to them with compassion, with kindness, with care and consistency. Until next time, I'm your host, Dr. Friedemann Schaub. It was wonderful to have this show today. Thank you for tuning in. Be well and take good care of yourself. Goodbye.